Hello and welcome to Talkin Jake. Myself, Jake Storielli, Big Baby David, as we officially get into baseball season. We missed the Alonso signing last week, so we'll touch up on that. A couple smaller ones happened. Kike, back to the Dodgers. Shocker. And a little Super Bowl recap. I was down in New Orleans, so I can walk you through some of the fun stuff that we were involved in, along with the dismantling of your Kansas City Chiefs. Congrats to the Birds, where I'll be giving myself some credit this episode, and there will be moments where I give myself zero credit this episode. Stay tuned. Timestamp it below. I guess let's check off some baseball quick. It's officially baseball season. The football season is done. Everyone gets their tweets off. It's ready to go. Pitchers and catchers reporting. It's also Valentine's Day this week. Get ready, people. Thursday? 14th? What's today?
Today is Monday, so I think, Thursday.
Friday. 10, 11, 12.
Oh, today's the 10th.
I got myself too. So prepare for that as needed. Let's do Pete Alonso's back to the Mets. This will be one of the examples of myself not giving myself credit. I thought Pete was going to get the contract, and it's a little bit of, I don't want to say credit to new age front offices, because I still think Pete's really good, but I thought the Pete Alonso home runs were going to speak volumes. I thought the phrase I ended up saying here, and I'm talking baseball a lot, was that if you are a front office, it's very rare that a free agent hits the market and you can say that guy is going to give me 35 homers. There's a good chance he could give me 40 homers. Depending if you had your first base spot open or a DH spot, which pretty much every team could get Pete Alonso in their lineup. I think part of the problem for Pete, I think he showed his hands a little bit. I think he wanted to be a New York Met. Pete likes being a Met. It's the most exciting time to ever be a Met. They added Juan Soto. They made a nice postseason run last year. The Mets are sexy, baby. And I'll give a partial assist to Trevor Plouffe, who stated, he said he knew Pete was done when Pete, early on in Pete's free agency, I think they were talking about those opt-in, opt-out contracts. And he's like, the only team I'd consider doing that for is the Mets. Well, that's a sign that you'd want to be a Met, man. That's some negotiating leverage out the door there. So that was tough for Pete. What the final numbers land at?
I believe the final is a 2-year, $54 million deal, with an opt-out in the years between.
Right, I think he's getting $30
million for this season's salary. I don't know how much of like a buyout on the option there is. I don't know what he's literally. I mean, it's a player option. So technically, It's all guaranteed to him.
And I mean, there were other goals here. They originally want to set the first base record that I think was $32 million. They don't get there. And yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you have to decide, okay, what are you really going for? Are you going for the years, or where do you want to play? He wanted to be a New York Met. He wanted to cash in on the biggest number possible. And Pete Alonso still believes in himself, and I think he should. I think Pete Alonso's power still played. I know he had a weird year last year. It's always funny checking in with Jolly Olive because, clutch is a weird thing in baseball and any sport. That, okay, are you clutch? Is it opportunity driven in a sport like baseball where, if Pete hit 240 last year, to have a clutch hit against a good reliever late, is that timing? Is it bad luck? That Pete didn't have a go-ahead homer or RBI since April until the playoffs. So Pete he played every game last year. Matters to me. 34 homers, 88 RBI. And like I said, offense being down last year hurt the look of Pete's numbers. Pete in 2023 had an 821 OPS, 504 slugging, 46 home runs. in 2023, he had the same OPS plus, 123. So I think those numbers were daunting. Pete's WAR has gone down the past 3 seasons. And yeah, I mean, people were freaking out, and maybe they're right. And maybe this is where we are, I don't say novice fans. That's rude to everyone. But they're saying Pete's body isn't going to age well. I don't know. I don't know how we judge that sometimes. That feels unfair to me. Maybe they're right. But Pete Alonso, the last 4 years, 37 homers, 40 homers, 46, and 34. So I think Pete got hurt by the first base market. We saw Nathaniel Lowe traded for a lefty reliever in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't super familiar with him. Didn't have like a bang-up year last year either. Let me get that, because that one tends to, I don't want to say makes me mad, but Nathaniel Lowe, who had a 120 OPS plus last year, similar WAR to Pete, making less money, got traded for Robert Garcia, your lefty from the Nationals. He's 28, excuse me. I want to take my age off. And he has a lot of control. 72 games last year, he had a 4.22. So
hasn't taken the next step yet.
I'm sure it's coming. I believe. Robert Garcia, UC Davis guy.
Okay.
Didn't have that. California boy. Sure. We saw the Christian Walker market come and go. Better player, offense and defense is what the numbers would tell you. Or similar player offensively, better defensively, like leads every first base chart.
Like he's the best defensive first baseman by any metric you're going to find.
The numbers were obsessed with him. Paul Goldschmidt looking for a 1-year low-risk deal.
Ditto Carlos Santana.
Santana.
There were options out there, even if you would say, like, of course Pete's better, but...
Right. It's a risk reward of teams are more timid to give out the big contract unless you are a guy. And I guess that becomes a conversation where I think almost feel like Pete's persona almost might have hurt him a little bit in this, where front offices were like, that's not what we pay for. We pay for what's on the field. Pete now has 2 years to have a great season. I'm still on it. I think for these, we saw Matt Chapman, we saw Snell cash in on these opt-out opportunity deals. I think Pete's got more in there. It should be a better team this year. He should have some motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's some more help.
There's a little more help. There should be some more ducks on the pond.
Seems like he'll get another opportunity to do stuff in the playoffs. Which can help or hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. I think teams are so.
I feel like if you don't get it done early, it's not like in the offseason, people throw out the playoff stuff the longer you wait.
I've got some stats.
Okay.
Pete Alonso, 16 postseason games. 2022 for 3. And then they had 13 games last year. 278, 429. A 1.0 OPS.
Wow.
Out of Pistol Pete Alonso. So I think, I don't know. It's interesting that postseason, I don't think teams super value, because it's still the whole body of work and all the numbers they're putting into their system. Pete played 162 games. They're going to value that over the 13 games I said he played last year. I do think it's funny if you put in those 13 games and Pete played 175 games last year, his numbers on the whole look pretty damn good. And it's probably like a close to a 130 OPS plus. Like it's...
If we did his 2024 stats.
Right. Might have to...
that's probably a bump up. I'll get R&D on it.
Might have to get, the analytics department going on that. Dalt. Pete Alonso just turned 30. He goes back to the Mets. And it's going to be a funny relationship to see. Yankee fans got to see when Judge was in the final year of his contract, and he went on to break the AL home run record. That was pretty wild. We also got to see Soto just have an amazing contract year and then enter the bidding table the right way. Pete's got 2 years to be good. And I think the bigger thing for me is, like, Pete, last year was bad for Pete. And again, it was a 123 OPS plus that I think if no team ever gives him the 5-year deal, I think he'll be able to string this thing along. And maybe what Pete needed to come to grips with is how much do you want to be a Met? If they're going to treat you like this, and our guy Joe's McFly already thinks Vladdy is going to be a Met next year. I don't know if that's true. Could be.
Seems like the way the Mets structured this contract, my guess would be they want to be able to make a push.
Could be. And maybe that's why they didn't have full interest in Pete. I think Pete Alonso is going to do his thing because that's all that his baseball card would tell you. That I think he's going to get a payday. I don't know if it's from the Mets or someone else. And maybe this is, when you enter free agency, you don't know how it's really going to go. And like I said, Pete, I think he kind of blew his negotiating leverage just a little bit. That maybe he always wanted the Mets and he knew Cohen has the wallet, so he thought he'd go shopping around and he'd come back and, hey, match this and we're good. Doesn't seem like that happened. Uncle Stevie and the Mets front office, they won this game of chicken that I think for Pete, it's go out there, do your thing again, and then you probably have to be actually at grips with leaving the Mets. And if you have a great season, you do have the owner that has the deepest pockets now, that if Pete goes out there and puts up a 40 spot, tough for me to picture the Mets just letting him walk. I mean, Vladdy would be a great... Mets fans would be able to figure that out. But it's just it's a weird mindset. I know Yankee fans, and I probably had some very defensive rants when DJ LeMahieu was balling out and hit free agency. It was like, we can't let this guy go. He's an essential part of the team. We're the Yankees, right?
Keep your guys.
You have someone playing good for the Yankees, you keep that guy. That's what we do. It's ended up in a not-so-great spot, and maybe that's what the Mets are trying to be smarter than. But it will be very interesting to see where Pete lands the ship this year. If he has a really strong year, it's going to be an interesting one for the Mets fan base. I had it wrong. I thought Pete was going to get paid. Maybe he needed one or two more teams involved. I feel like we haven't had a lot of aftermath, like, oh, the Angels offered 110, or we haven't...
Yeah, there hasn't been the, like, what was the other offer out there?
Yeah, not a lot of good gossip there. And I don't know, it's one of those, should the Seattle Mariners have been involved? Absolutely. But yeah, I think Pete's value ended up in just a slightly odd spot that, the Texas Rangers added Jake Berger, where they're like, hey, we can get 30 homers from that spot. We don't have to pay him as much money. They allowed them to move Nathaniel Lowe, who was traded for a lefty reliever. So, who's apparently from California. We just found out. So, maybe the market wasn't there. Maybe Pete is declining. Maybe all the nerds and geeks have this right, and we're going to look up, and it'll be Pete Alonso, 25 home run season, and it feels like the wheels are falling off. At age 30, and Pete is literally built to hit homers.
Feels like there's a version of him that even with an overall step back in skill set or something that still produces homers for a long time.
Yeah, and hey,
but it can happen quick.
He's just got a couple of his buzzwords were just a little off when you look at the page. The WAR going down, strikeouts were slightly up this year. That it scared people away a little bit. But I guess I think Pete still has 2022. I mean, even 2023 Pete, which that was a weird year, but he hit more homers to a lower batting average. But we're coming off, he was MVP 8, MVP 17, which isn't really anything. And then last year he was still an all-star. I think Pete's going to still do his thing, get the contract. And it's going to be funny to look at all the opt-in, opt-outs in a couple years because Cody Bellinger's got a massive year coming up. that if he has a good Yankee season, I mean, watch out, that he will hit free agency the right way. And whenever I see that, the people also always bring up Correa, which, when does his really get funky? In 2029.
I think he has 4 more straight up years, and then,
So
then
I don't
it
even
becomes the
count
really
him.
funky.
Correa got a contract.
Yeah.
Or I guess his original signing with the Twins.
Yeah, that was one of these. That was, what,
So,
3
yeah.
for 90 with opt-out.
So that should be in the
one
good
was.
column, right?
Got paid after.
People were tweeting at me Correa like in a bad way. Yeah, that was a good. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start adding him to the list.
Like, yeah, among the mega deals, he signed one of the more team-friendly ones, but he is guaranteed whatever,
A lot of
$100
money
million.
for where a couple teams told them you can't play with us. So that leaves Bregman. We've done Pete and Bregman for a while. There's some Cubs rumors swirling around Bregman, which seem to have some realness to him. This contract seemed like a bad sign for Bregman. And you wonder where he's really at. Where does he want to be? Is he willing to go anywhere? And what's still on the table? Because camps are
starting this week.
The trucks are going. If you follow whoever you follow on your team's Instagram or Twitter, they probably posted the picture like team trucks leaving.
To like today's, some pitchers and catchers are officially reporting today. Yankees report day is tomorrow.
Pretty wild. We are here. Let's see what else the baseball world has for us. There's a bunch of little ones. The Padres, Connor Joe, Jason Hayward, Kike is back to the Dodgers. Just a note on the Dodgers. They currently, and again, I went on a little Hai-Song Kim thing last week. Hai-Song Kim is the only player on the Dodgers offense currently that has options. Now that Kike has signed. So, I don't know. I'm just so interested to see who he is as a ball player. The fact the Dodgers are in on him feels like a really good sign. And it's just, hey, man, there's a cool factor to the Dodgers that it's like, okay, you're turning on Dodgers baseball. How long have we seen Max Muncy? It's the only place we've seen Will Smith. Miggy Rowe still riding it out. Chris Taylor and Kike are still there. Obviously, that's ignoring the cool stuff of having Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman. Teoscar coming back. That, I don't know. It's very interesting. Usually there's flexible parts of teams' roster. The only guy in their bullpen currently with an option is Vesia. Who was amazing for them last year. Injuries are going to happen. This all changes very quickly, but it will be an interesting part of the dynamic if everyone stays healthy and guys are playing bad. There's not a lot of go down to AAA for a week.
And last year they had Paxton, who was pitching reasonably well from all things considered, DFA midway through the season. So
right,
they've had the difficult thoughts with some proven guys before.
And maybe it doesn't even matter because it didn't matter last year.
They can do whatever they want.
I want to talk Super Bowl because I was down in New Orleans, myself, Justin Pennick, Kyle on socials. I guess we can do some game quick because the game kind of was quick. And then for the true Waken Jakers who are subscribed to the YouTube, like maybe you just are, can walk you into some of the behind the scenes and some of the fun highlights and all that. If you haven't heard, Eagles won pretty handily. There was a possibility of this. And this is where I didn't give myself credit before for Pete Alonso not signing what I assumed would be the bigger contract that a team would convince themselves about. I flipped, I want to say it was week 9, 10, something like that of the NFL season. I was on the Ravens train. I just loved the way that they were dominating games. I flipped. I went to the other Birds. Go Birds. And the Eagles got it done. A crazy season going back to, were they 2-2, and they lost the game in Brazil, and then the whole thing just felt weird. They were supposed to lose to the Saints. Or excuse me, they won in Brazil. They lost to the Falcons. They were about to lose to the Saints. They got bailed out in that game, and then they lost to the Buccaneers. And I guess before I do the zoom out, let's get the game done quick, because that's kind of how it happened. Although that first drive, the Eagles look like they're starting to hum and play Eagles football, and then the offensive pass interference on fourth down, kind of crazy. The broadcast was doing they didn't love the call. Tom Brady, interesting day for Tom. Maybe we'll end up there as well. But Tom Brady calling the Super Bowl. This was a big one for him. And he came out and he very aggressively was like, oh, you got to let the players decide it. Don't like that call. They checked with Pereira. It was like a hand to the face, which, again, football happens fast. And when you're watching it on replay, the replay tends to make it look worse. With all the Chiefs referee storylines, to have that happen first drive was a little tough. It was a little tough. There was a decent little makeup call early on as the Chiefs were about to have the Eagles stopped again, and they called was it unsportsmanlike?
I think unnecessary roughness on that jump ball.
Unnecessary roughness on McDuffie. Yeah, he's going for the ball, and their helmets hit.
It just happened. It happened late. Again, like a replay, slow-mo, it looks too late. But I think everybody watching in real time was like, I don't think that was anything.
Everyone was shocked. I think that one was more shocking. When you saw the flag come out against A.J. Brown, it was kind of I don't know.
And you saw the replay, that is like the rule, of the two.
Hey, this is the Super Bowl. Let's not go down like this. That
didn't have to be called.
That was the more nervous part there. That one was like, wait, that's a penalty? Hey, the fact it balanced things out and the game at that point was still it was still 0-0. It's like, okay. Just kind of, I know Shelfie replied to my tweet and he was like, yeah, I obviously hated the first one. Now that it's done, let's not play that game all night. And luckily that storyline went away. But part of that was because the Eagles took flight. John Dotson, big night for Penn State. Mark this down if you're just a random Jake says some stuff and you like that. Penn State, I think, is going to have a full rise. I know they were in the college football playoff. I think Penn State is going to be back in a big way. Big Ten is back. Saquon is king of the world. John Dotson getting a little love in that. One of the top 3 picks in the draft is going to be out of Penn State, Abdul Carter. So Penn State's been dormant for a little bit, and I don't want to say a laughing stock, because they haven't been a laughing stock. They've been in the mix while being out of the mix. No one has confused Penn State with Bama, Ohio State, the big boys of football. I think Penn State's going to be back. James Franklin, love him or hate him, he made Vanderbilt an exciting football program for a little bit. He's been doing solid things at Penn State. I think the Penn State wave is coming. You got Saquon representing on the pro level. You're about to have a top pick. College football playoff. They would have been basically in every college football playoff. It was 12 teams. I think Penn State, is back. Anyways, Jahan Dotson, Penn State. With the catch down to the 1, tush push, Eagles are in. And there's something about the tush push that sets a tone, and I think the Chiefs talked about it, that it was, it's just like a bad time. I think Chris Jones said it just kind of sucks, and then he comes out of the first tush push, and his neck is clearly all jacked up. From there, Eagles are driving in. The Chiefs are doing nothing. They got a first down on the first pass, the first play of them having the football, and then they didn't the rest of the second half. I mean, they had nothing. Nothing. The O-line was getting crushed. I mean, you've heard by this point the Eagles didn't blitz at all. It was Mahomes' career high in sacks. That this game came down to the big uglies. The Eagles' defense was awesome. Trying to think what else is out there. There was a moment of, like, the Eagles were driving again to go up 2 scores. Hurts throws an interception that he didn't have to throw. And it was kind of like the Mahomes read factor that I want to circle to in a minute on the Jake wrong and right meter. That I don't know. There's something about seeing those guys and knowing today's NFL and 28-3, Tom Brady's in the booth, that there was a little bit for a while that it was like, I don't know. What can we rule out? Because this looks like an ass kicking. And it was. The Cooper DeJean pick 6. That felt like icing on the cake to make it 17-0 when Kansas City hadn't done anything. You know, that can feel dramatic too, because if the Chiefs came down and they scored the next drive, or they were getting the ball out of halftime, that it was like, I don't know, if they can make it 17-7, and then if they can score coming out of half, and now it's 17-14, and now the Eagles are playing tight, Super Bowl, etc. No. Mahomes throws another interception, back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back passes from Mahomes. They had another drive in between, but it was three rushes and a sack, or 2 rushes and a sack. It's 17-0, and you just gave the Eagles the ball on the 14-yard line. A.J. Brown, wide open, 24-0. Just a pure ass-kicking. Same with Kendrick Lamar at halftime. It was good. The internet / Twitter is in such a rough space that I understood what everyone was saying. Kendrick's halftime show was good. I think the whole thing for a halftime show is it's supposed to be this otherworldly thing, and who have some of the recent ones been?
I think people liked Rihanna a couple years ago.
Rihanna crushed.
Lady Gaga a few years before that was like really good.
Super Bowl performers by year.
Weekend was 2021, but that was a weird COVID one.
Yeah, Weekend, like, I didn't hate. I mean, it's we set a certain standard that it's like, well, Super Bowl halftime show. Kendrick was great. I thought, obviously the build up to the final song, Not Like Us, was pretty incredible. The Serena Williams drop, it's like, wow. Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam as the opener. That was pretty crazy. So let's see. It was Usher last year. With Usher, you're getting the dancing. You're getting more bops. Like Kendrick,
he has songs he could have gone to that were more
Right.
of that, like some especially older stuff. Like there are some people being like, well, he doesn't have hits. It's like, well, he does.
Right.
He didn't. He skewed more recent with his selection.
like I think for as far as halftime shows go, so the one that I jumped to, Shakira and J-Lo.
Yes.
I mean, that was
that.
the Super Bowl halftime show for me. Like,
That was
electric.
everything.
We're dancing, hit songs, like putting on a show. For me, that's what I think of when I think of Super Bowl halftime show. Seeing if any other ones jump out. Beyonce. God, start getting old quick. The Who in 2010.
Whoa.
That I thought Kendrick was good. I understand the people being like on the Super Bowl concert performance level. Slightly different.
It was like incredible art.
Yeah.
And not.
Just it was a different approach. And I mean, the way he built up and went into Not Like Us was just, that's all time. That's all time.
But unfortunately, the people who like don't like it, like the issue with the genre, like rap, if you're not into it, I don't think lends itself as well to like enjoying it in a live setting as much as like more pop and.
Yeah, and it's just like I tweeted something about it that I was laughing that Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg kept doing the Stop Hate commercials. And then the halftime show is built around Not Like Us, which, yes, for everyone commenting on the tweet, hating a pedophile is different than racism. I agree. I will say there was a couple people, I was talking with our social guy, Kyle, on the trip, and he's like, dude, you got to get back into Twitter more. And I was like, dude, I'd like to, but it's also brutal. Like, go check out the replies on that, because there's a lot of people that understand the joke that I'm making. And even there was a couple comments that they were like, and it kind of brought a smile to my face. I was like, Jake, these are the tweets from Jake I like. Like, we're being silly. We're having fun. It's just crazy how people roll with it. Like, the arguments that are now going on in there. Okay, no, I'm not even going to read them. You can go read them if you want.
Like fun back and forths on
this
Twitter
tweet
are just
ends,
dead.
This tweet starts, then go back to Sudan, pal. Like, that has no business here. We're trying to have fun watching the Super Bowl. And yeah, there's a lot of people, and the world's kind of fueled by hate, which made me a little unhappy with Not Like Us, because I was like, why do people love this? And I think a chunk of it is because Drake is just getting rocked.
It's a guy everybody knows getting absolutely
on the most
embarrassed.
national stage. Drake is just getting destroyed. And so it's a great song. I mean, when that little
for a reason that's worthwhile.
When that little right. Yeah, everyone's I don't know. So that was good. And it actually was good internet for a little bit. Like, I saw the tweets that was like, there's like a stock image of a white family on a couch, and they're all saying like A minor, like, so I don't know. The internet was doing some good stuff there. Serena, my God, one of my first crushes out there, wow, killing it. Crip walking literally on Drake's grave. So,
moving well.
Yeah. Compton represented. So, and then, yeah, second half, you're trying to talk yourself into 24-0, 27-0, Reed and Mahomes. It was nothing.
I kept finding myself saying, like, well, 28-3, the comeback started with like 2 minutes left in the third.
Right. Yeah.
No.
I mean, the phrase I kept using this week and with the Eagles was it felt like they could hand the ball off every time. Impressively, they could not. The Chiefs' run defense came to play. Saquon, 25 for 57. Wow. And again, a lot of that comes with the Chiefs clearly made a commitment to that. That opened up stuff in the passing game. 17 of 22 from Hurts. Devontae Smith with the big highlight one, kind of the game sealer, the Slim Reaper in the back of the end zone. A.J. Brown getting his touchdown after kind of getting furious on the sideline while they were still dominating. His book comes back out. Eagles defense really good. They made the Chiefs one-dimensional, 11 carries for 49 yards. There just wasn't time to even run the ball. Barely time to pass the ball. Xavier Worthy ends up having a massive game. And Mahomes had a couple Mahomes throws. That first touchdown, actually both touchdowns to Worthy were kind of insane. I mean, that second one, the deep ball, Worthy's flying. He's one of the fastest players in the league. And this is I think I've busted this out before, and it's not rocket science, but there's a Super Bowl theory that guys are just performing at their maximum level. There's no next week to play for. It's not, even in the AFC NFC championship games, like, you're putting it all out there, but you're kind of not. You want to play in the Super Bowl the next game. Like,
there's at least a party that's like, well, I don't want to get hurt.
This is it. This is the Super Bowl. That. I think the highlights are the highlights are the highlights. The guys are playing at a faster level. Like, everything is more to the extreme. Watch that Xavier Worthy touchdown again, and maybe I'll do the video on this. you hear him hit the ground, and it sounds like he got hit by another player because he is full tilt, a guy that runs a 4.2, one of the fastest guys in the league, full tilt. The way he hits the ground is hard just because it is maximum. Almost none of this matters. The Eagles dominated. Hurts was great on the ground and through the air. It was a blowout. And I think it was funny. This week, the Chiefs were the favorites in Vegas, minus 1.5 points. So not by a lot. Essentially a pick 'em. And I mentioned I'm giving myself credit, not giving myself credit. I hadn't bet on the game because I was down in New Orleans. Well, I had which is something I could have Googled very easily. I didn't know if sports gambling was legal in New Orleans yet. It is. But before that, which again I did not Google, I was like, oh shoot, do I have to get my Super Bowl bets off before the Super Bowl? Like before I fly down there on Friday morning? And then I was like, I land at 4:30, which is more than enough time to get your bets in for the 6:30 Super Bowl. So I'd been debating, and I was in New Orleans, and I tweeted it out before the game. And there was just something to it that Mahomes and the Chiefs, Andy Reid really started convincing me. The 2 weeks off made me think Kelsey was going to have something special up his sleeve because we'd seen him. And we've seen older tight ends do this in recent years where it's like, okay, we're running out of gas in the tank. That let's save it for later in the years. I even think Mark Andrews did it this year. I think that's why he got off to a slow start. And then as he got in more game shape and ready to go, he started balling out. The Eagles almost lost to the Rams. The Eagles were a Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter got that sack. It was a missed assignment by the Rams front. Like the Rams kind of had him dead to rights. That would have ended the Eagles season. And what would we be saying about Sirianni? They didn't. They rolled on the Commanders 55-23. They rolled on the Chiefs 40-22, which is not as close as this game was. That leading up, everyone thought it was going to be a close game. Even the Chiefs had one loss when they were playing their guys this year. And it feels like the Chiefs play a close brand of football between both these teams just moving the ball the right way. The Eagles are nasty on the D-line and the O-line. The no blitz stat that we already talked about, their offensive line and just how big those boys are and how they can dominate a game. Some of Hurts' dropbacks were comical. There was no rush because A, they were scared of Jalen Hurts breaking out and running, but B, also just those big bodies that clearly the D-line on the Chiefs was like, we need to contain Jalen Hurts' running, that Jalen Hurts was back there just chilling, which allowed them to open up the passing game and dominate on every front. But yes, right before the game, I did talk myself in the Chiefs because I was doing Spagnuolo, and he's going to be the first coordinator in the Hall of Fame. Andy Reid, legend, could have an argument for one of the best coaches ever. Has an argument for one of the best coaches ever. If they got the three-peat, would have an argument for the best coach ever. Mahomes, still Patrick Mahomes. He's 28 years old. That if he was going to get it done, he was going to be on pace ahead of Brady, right? Kelsey for one game, Chris Jones for one game. And even, like you saw that early Hurts interception, and Hurts had another pass that was just like ugly early on that you're like, okay, if the Chiefs can make more of this happen, they could not. And I think I've talked about it on here a little bit. Sirianni wasn't the biggest Sirianni guy. It's abrasive, it's aggressive. As a Paisan, he's got the Italian flag on his hat, kind of in your face. He's got his own guy, Big Dom. That whole storyline is crazy. And in the back of every Sirianni interview, there's Big Dom. Seems like he knows where the camera is. They made him like an actual assistant coach this year so he could wear the headset when he's like not a coach. And I think even that gentle BBD giggle you might have just heard, maybe it's just getting old and soft. With the Eagles getting it done and winning, it made every storyline kind of awesome to me. Like Sirianni, we've done that whole thing before, and going back to, there's the guy. He was, I flip over to NFL Network after the game because Chris Rose, obviously. Like they're interviewing Sirianni, and Big Dom is just right behind him in the camera shot. He was same thing with the post Super Bowl on the field interview. Right behind him is Big Dom. I realize he's his guy, but it's a weird. Sometimes when you haven't seen something before, you just say, weird, I don't like that. No coach has had their personal bodyguard, just guy. Like, he's literally the definition of guy. And every time you hear someone talk about Big Dom, they say he's a cool dude, and they say he does a ton of stuff. Like, they say if they need a bus to go somewhere, it's like, hey, Big Dom, we need a bus to go somewhere. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. But winning cures everything. And now Sirianni for what's that?
I did a quick Google. What does Big Dom do?
Right.
Senior advisor to the general manager, chief security officer, and game day operations expert.
It's all made up. I'll tell you what.
Wildly different things.
Big Dom does a lot of stuff. All those titles are made up.
He's a guy.
He's the guy, and that's it. That when you're winning, it all gets covered up. That Sirianni, for his quirks or intensity or whatever it is, going back to the 2-2 Eagles that were almost 1-3, Sirianni was viewed as the weak spot. The two weak spots were Sirianni and Hurts. The Jalen Hurts story has become, if you really zoom out or zoom in, it's one of the cooler sports stories. He was benched in college for Tua. It's new age college football, so like Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma and balled out there. So it's, benching is something. But he sat behind Tua for actually a season before that, and then Tua got hurt in the SEC championship game, and Hurts came in and helped lead Bam on that drive. So he's got like all the boxes you want. Never mind the fact he's hot. That's fine. But he's got everything. He's calm, cool, and composed. He's seen the highs and lows at every level. People coming out didn't know if he'd be able to be a quarterback at the NFL level. He squats so much. It was funny, and Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Bama this year, it's been funny to hear people debate about him in this year's NFL draft. Because some of his games were ugly in college, but he does ooze talent. And Jalen Hurts put in the work, and I think that's the going away message for whatever you're about. Jalen Hurts, if he came out of college and he did the same amount of work as everyone else, he wouldn't have won a Super Bowl. He wouldn't have the keys to the Chiefs right now. The other thing that I had forgotten was he got drafted when they had Carson Wentz, and they thought Carson Wentz was good. Like, people were critical of the Eagles drafting Hurts because they're like, what are you doing? You have Carson Wentz. You're invested in Carson Wentz. Why would you go and do this? Well, whatever the Eagles are doing front office-wise, your team needs to look into that, because Zach Bond, being one of the best players in the sport this year, a 1-year, $3 million free agent from the Saints, who was like playing the wrong position. The Jalen Hurts story is now like all-time cool. You got to respect it and love it. Sirianni, it all felt bad when you're not winning. They won. Now what Sirianni does seems pretty badass, right? The Saquon, man, it was really cool, his post-game interview. Because Because I think he said it on the post game, but he was like, to grow who you think about this. Saquon, who's, top of the sports, millions of dollars, borderline Hall of Fame-ish trajectory, like, some more work to be done, but an argument for best running back in the game. Like, that's pretty nuts. That's all you can really dream about. He was leaving the New York market. Michael Strahan has been on TV forever now, and he continues to be on TV. Looks great, by the way. If Michael Strahan had been a Tampa Bay Buck or even a Denver Bronco, he wouldn't be on Good Morning America. He wouldn't be everywhere. Like, there's some times when the New York effect can be real, and if you're Saquon Barkley, like, you're leaving the New York Giants. You're the star of that team. I know they stunk, but no one blamed you for it. He left to go to the Eagles. So he left New York to go to their second most hated team.
Depends on the year.
It depends on the year. I think Cowboys
all in
are more all-encompassing hate.
All else equal, whichever one, if they're equally good teams in this moment.
I mean, the Cowboys
are more hated.
The Cowboys haven't been as good as the Eagles, that I think if the Cowboys were, I think that hate would be fine. That he left to the Eagles knowing that you're going to ostracize a chunk of your fan base. Now, everything's landed great. Like, real Giants fans are like, no, the Giants are idiots. Saquon good, Giants idiots. And they said something about, he didn't say like his brand or his aura or anything like that, but he almost said like it would be better for his career to leave the Giants. And in a way that's scary, because the only way to do that really is to go to or win the Super Bowl. And he did that in the first year. Like, Super Bowls are forever. And he did that. And he's kind of, I won't say he's changed football, but I'll tell you, a lot of teams are going to be looking at the running back position. They're going to be looking at their O-line. Football went way into passing. Like, I remember even, like, I've seen some of Pennick and Dalton's clips, and, like, football had this whole thing, like, teams don't pass on first down enough and all that. Like, play to your team's weapons.
Your team's good at X, do X.
Win the game. And how do we get there? And what pieces do you have to get there? So, hopefully it's huge for the running back position, although Saquon is a different animal. I mean, seeing the way he didn't have a great game, but the couple runs he did have and finish off were pretty cool. And for Jalen Hurts, like, he ran for 74. He's in the middle of all those tush pushes that Chris Jones, one of the baddest dudes in the league, doesn't like being in. And he's so accurate when he needs it that, yes, he's not. I think that's the thing that's thrown off football and the NFL a chunk, is that you need the pocket quarterback to throw 30 times, and that's how you win the big games and all of that. This team doesn't do that, and yet they win, and they're dominant, and they're nasty. And all of that being said, the defense was gross. And I think that was the final thing that tipped me over the edge last second. Vic Fangio, former Broncos head coach, legendary coordinator, I think Reed and Mahomes were 8-0 against him. That, again, when you're in the sports betting lane, it's kind of like, okay, what am I going to wake up and regret the least? It's like, okay, if Mahomes and Reed beat the same defensive coordinator 9 straight times, or if I bet against that and the Chiefs win, I'm going to feel like a fool. Couple other notes. The town was Philly. New Orleans was 90% Philly. It's kind of crazy in hindsight. And maybe did they know? Do they just travel better? Did Chiefs fans know? Because we knew there was a chance this was a blowout for Philly. Like, we did. You did. The way they can dominate. But everyone assumed because it's a Super Bowl and you gave Reed 2 weeks to prepare. that this was going to be close, and if it was going to be close late, Hurts and Sirianni versus Reed and Mahomes, up until yesterday, wasn't a discussion. But they didn't. They didn't. They dominated. In on Hurts, trying to get in on Sirianni and Big Dom. I mean, I could end up hating them by week 4 next year. Because Big Dom knew where the camera was last night. That's all I'll say.
I have Big Dom's Wikipedia up, and I didn't notice this before, and as I glance back over, Wikipedia doesn't have a birth date for Big Dom. It says born 1978 or 1979.
Yes.
Some usually gotta go back sometime for individuals featured on Wikipedia that we don't have exactly what year they're born.
That's that. I'll walk you guys through our trip a little bit. Went down, flew down to New Orleans on Friday morning early, 7 a.m. flight. So, you're leaving for the airport 5:15-ish. Goes okay. Sneaky bad flight. Flight took an extra half hour, just because airport traffic and stuff. No Wi-Fi, no TV.
Oh.
We're raw up there. So that was tough. I had a couple podcasts, was going through Simmons' NBA trade deadline and that stuff. So whatever, played some online chess versus the computer. But you also end up in that crazy cycle where you feel like a mental patient because you're like, well, maybe the Wi-Fi works now. So every 10 minutes, we try to log into the Wi-Fi and didn't work.
It's down today.
Whole flight.
How long is that flight? I don't have a good gauge.
So, again,
in my head, I would just sort of assume same as when we go to Tampa. But
so I think it's supposed to be a little over 3, maybe close to 3:30. But I think it was closer to 4. Because, again, we extra time to get in there. And 4-hour flights, a totally different animal. 2:15 flight compared to a 4-hour flight are completely different. No TV, no movie. I didn't bring a book. So just podcasting and intermittent chess. So that was kind of tough. Gonna be honest.
That last hour of that.
It's just grinding.
Really end up in
let me log on to the Wi-Fi now. Nope. Ubers and Lyfts were so crazy, couldn't get one, had to taxi. Hate taxis, feel like they're normally scam. This was not. They had a locked-in price from the airport to New Orleans, so that was massive. Ate a meal, go down to Bourbon Street, and it's organized chaos. We're doing some man-on-the-street stuff. And yeah, it's Eagle Green, good. And it's a little crazy. It's the afternoon. Man-on-the-street stuff, not my strength, but we figured you walk Bourbon Street enough times, you're going to get the characters. And, we were like, we'll get the 1 or 2 baseball people that recognize us. We could tap into them. But we didn't really have a game because there is no game plan. That's the secret with Man on the Street. You just need to talk to people. So we just walked up and down Bourbon 4 times, which was exhausting. Got some of the stuff we needed, reset. Good seafood dinner. Went out on Bourbon Street, but we're all exhausted. This is now 9:30 p.m. Watch UConn lose to St. John's, feeling that. 22 turnovers. Disgusting. Go back out. Bourbon is packed. We kind of don't know where to be or where we want to be. And Yawn Crew is coming out. It's a long travel day. Went into a country bar to try to make Penn happy. Wasn't the place you wanted to be. We got out of there. Patios is one of the famous places down there. We went there. That was nice. Good indoor-outdoor vibes there. They have a piano bar there. It's too packed, but they have an absolute legend that plays on a serving tray. You just have to see it to believe it. So that was good. Panic was getting some love from football people down there. That was pretty cool to see. And then, fight or flight. It's a long day. We have to be at the parade at 9 a.m. the next morning, which means, you're waking up 7:30, 8. We don't really know what the parade is. DraftKings didn't tell us too much about it.
You just knew you had to be.
We just knew we had to be.
You were going to be part of the parade.
Ready to go at a parade at 9 a.m. So after a travel day, we're all looking at each other like, hey, let's call this. We leave 11:30, midnight, something like that. In the Uber home, get a call from Chris Rose. Where are you guys? Out with my wife and my niece. Okay, Chris Rose. Probably wouldn't have met up with that anyways. Worked out that we were still in the Uber. So next day, wake up, head to parade. We're nervous. We don't know how to check in. Nobody's ever really been in a parade. And we didn't know, like, DraftKings, we knew they had to... Because they were like, yeah, we'll get 2 of you on the float. We had 3, and then that became a thing that it wasn't an easy ticket to get a hold of. So we didn't know if there was going to be other DraftKings people there, influencers, famous people, or if it was just going to be like DraftKings employees that got like a cool perk at the job. Turned out it was a mix. We walk on the float. Big Andrew Whitworth is on there. Chad Ochocinco is on there. And Rob Riggle is on there. So we're looking around like, okay. So what do we do? Do we say hi? Do you not say hi? You don't want to be weird, whatever. I decided I'm going to go for Whitworth because Trev went to Vegas with like Whitworth and the Staffords like a year ago.
I was about to say Whitworth's like at least tangentially part of that crew, right?
Yeah, and they like, I think we had the picture up on Talkin Baseball or somewhere. And, it was a nice pick. It's Trev, Whitworth, the Staffords, and like Trev and Stafford now are guys that I was like, there's some Whitworth ripple effect here, right? Walk up to Whitworth, one of the biggest humans you've ever seen. Slim down, looks good, but just a big frame. I was like, oh, John Boy Media, we do baseball stuff. You're Trevor Plouffe, he's kind of Boys at Stafford now. And he just gave me like, okay. I was like, all right. So that's not going to lead to any follow-ups. That's bad. Leaving the Whitworth conversation, Pennick saw it as his window to go in. Pennick bowls me over on the way to Whitworth. My foot got stuck under like something. I basically go down. It was a tough scene. Pennick apologized to me after, but it was like, okay, we're probably out on Whitworth today. I don't think it's happening. We're on like the empty float, not moving for a while. Parade's supposed to start at 10. It's like 10:30. We haven't moved. Ocho's kind of in the front, just casual. Hey, how are you? We're back there with Rob Riggle, kind of hanging out. He was cool. Not a ton of back and forth, but he was cool. And then the parade started, and it was kind of nervous. You're like, okay, are we throwing beads? Are you hitting people? Do you need to what are the rules of engagement here? Is this parade going to be a mess? Is it going to be fun? Like, what is it going to be a shit show? It was a blast. You throw your first couple beads, and then it was like, okay, people signed up for this. And there was a couple turns where people were going crazy. It was crazy to see how excited people were for Rob Riggle. And, got some love myself. Love the podcast. There was my favorite moment, there was a Mets. I mean, once you got into a rhythm, like you had a game plan, and if people were calling for him, you're kind of trying to shoot. I mean, 2 hours, I was just tossing beats nonstop. I took one break to post something on social media because I was like, I should, but that was it. There was this bro in like a Mets jersey that was like, Rob Riggle, oh shit. He took out his phone. He was all excited. And I was like, I'm going to crack this kid. Cracked it, dropped it right in the bucket. He turns, he looks at me. He's like, John Boy. And so I was like, that was a perfect situation. It was crazy. I mean, New Orleans knows how to do a parade. And yeah, we were kings for a little bit, just hucking beads, kind of no rules. You're making people's day. Like just that feeling of being in the crowd and someone's like, yeah, and then you hit them with the beads. It's a great part of our society. So that was good. But again, that was just 2 hours locked in. We get off the float, get lunch at the closest place just because like our brains weren't working yet. Chris Rose was in the area, met up with him. Walked around with him a little bit and his wife, Michelle. Great to see them. And then, yeah, we had to go back to Bourbon Street to kind of finish off some of the shorts we were recording. Bourbon Street had multiplied and become pure chaos, just pure chaos. And we weren't there. Like, we had come down from the parade. like ate lunch, come down. That now we're back in Bourbon Street. It's hot. It's 80. It's steamy out. People are drunk. It's all football fans from all over. It's Bourbon Street. That was a bad time. I kind of had a dip where I was like, oh my God, like let's film a couple things and get out of here because we have to go to the Captain Morgan party in a couple hours. So we did that. We reset. Me and Pennick are panicking a little bit because we planned outfits with jackets and we just got cooked by the sun. Captain Morgan party starts at 7, so the sun would be down, but it's Bourbon Street. Temperature came down enough that we were good. And then went to the Captain Morgan party. T-Pain's supposed to be playing. Makes sense now, but they only had Captain Morgan drinks, so you're like, okay, so we're gonna be having Captain Morgan. We found a safe place to establish ourselves, a little second floor table, VIP-ish area. That it was like, all right, let's get some space, let's get comfortable. We did that. When we got there, place was kind of empty. Starts getting packed. Happy we had our side table. It's good to have a home base. And then, it starts getting close to T-Pain time, and it's packed. And he was playing on the first floor. So we could kind of poke our heads and get in there, but if you really want to see T-Pain, you had to wrestle. We didn't do a ton of wrestling, but we were there. We had a good time. Towards the end of T-Pain, there was 4 floors. The top 2 floors, you couldn't see T-Pain. We went up there. There's just space. We had an area. And then basically same thing. That got packed, and we were like, all right, we've been at this Captain Morgan party for 4.5 hours. So we went back on Bourbon Street, walked around, half crazy, half not crazy. Everyone's on a different timeline, especially with Super Bowl. Like, some people are getting their night started at midnight. Some people have been dead zombies for 4 hours. Like, full mix. That we walked around a little bit. Nothing super calling our name, and we had to fly out the next day. Pennick's not a drinker, so that's however many hours we were on Bourbon Street of him being sober. That's a tough ask for anyone. Mm-hmm. Not putting the blame on him because we were coming up against it too. But yeah, the city was on one. It's a city that's normally on one. The Super Bowl, an absolute chaos multiplier. And I think the city has some different dynamics between its waterfront and the French Quarter that, again, the afternoon on Bourbon Street, that was brutal. Everything else was okay, even that Saturday night. Because I think there was enough different events spread out that it's like there's a reason that they were having their 11th Super Bowl in New Orleans, 11th or 12th. So yeah, it was cool to see. Kind of would have been fun to go to the game. That was an interesting question Jess asked me when I got home. She was like, were a lot of people going to the games? And I guess I was like, if I met someone who was a Phillies fan or Eagles fan, they were going to the game. So yeah, I think it becomes an equation because there are all these like work companies and stuff that go that I think by the time tickets get sorted, it's like if you're a fan of that team, you figure it out. Like if you're an Eagles fan that works for DraftKings, I think however you have to land that. Well, if you work for DraftKings and you're not an Eagles fan, you're like, well, I don't have to go. It'd be sick if a ticket is offered, but if not, so that's kind of how that sorted out. Okay flight home. I'm trying to think what other good celeb. Greg Olson was in the airport, didn't say hi. Had a little hip wiggle to his walk that it was like, wow, you probably got hit by the strongest men in the world for like a decade. Good-looking guy. Also thinned out. Trying to think what else. No, it was a good trip. It was kind of grindy just because like we're on Bourbon Street having to do work. It's kind of the opposite for everyone else. It's a weird feeling. It's man on the street, just not my strength.
It's a little inherently draining, and it's a like for you personally, it's a different environment than a lot of what you've done for travel for this job.
Yes. So yeah, it was a good trip. We'll I think Super Bowl may be a semi-regular thing, maybe every year. I don't know. Maybe depend on the city. Maybe depends on the teams. And yeah, Tom Brady on the broadcast. I said I was going to circle around. Tom, it was okay. I think everyone likes to land an area that's not okay. There was a part of where he was bringing everything back to him, and it was like, easy, Tom. Like, they were talking about losing the Super Bowl, and he's like, that's a feeling I felt 3 times. And it's like, we know, man. So losing the Super Bowl seems bad. I agree. Yeah. Football is in the books. And it will be, NFL always finds a way between draft, free agency, quarterback storylines. Sure you get a lot of Rodgers coming up. For us, a lot of baseball. We'll see where basketball rears its ugly head the next few weeks. Anthony Davis out. Shocker.
March Madness before you know it.
That'll be fun. Golf's going. But yeah, we'll be locked in. We've got our tier lists that have been rolling out. Do we have this one's recorded?
This week's is already scheduled, so
maybe
we'll get back on the grind of recording those this week.
People like those. I like doing those as well. Kind of lets us know, and maybe we'll mix in a couple other ones. It's kind of like the off season's over. Alex Bregman, there's some Jose Quintanas out there and things like that, but it's
and we've got
teams are reporting.
We've got videos of Max Fried pitching to Spencer Jones. So,
whoa, that's the good stuff. Let's get ready to sink our teeth into baseball season. Hope you guys enjoyed the football season. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you're subscribed. BBD will tell you about his uncle.
Talkin Jake is a production of Dan Patrick Productions, John Boy Media, and Workhouse Media.